and Pajayupana. Pajaya was it? Pajaya. Ãrammana is Ãrammanika. Ãrammana is object. If Ãrammanika is means phenomena, the mind and mental state is taking the object. Because Ãrammanika is subject, right? Object, subject. Ãrammana here is Pajaya here, object here, what are they? 89 consciousness, mind, right? Chitta, mind. 52 Kirasika manifest. 28 Rupa, matter, right? Nibbana, okay? Panya, consciousness. This object. There is object. Here we're going to hear the formal Dhamma related to later Dhamma. The formal Dhamma is material Dhamma. The later Dhamma is Tisang Dhammana. The Pajayupana is 89 Chitta and 52 Kirasika. We call it Ãrammanika. So now we know Pajaya is means cause. Pajayupana is means effect. Right? The Ãrammana is means object. Ãrammanika is means subject. The Pajaya object here, sixth sense object. How do you say sixth sense object? You see Rupa here, right? Rupa. Dhamma, what's in Dhamma object? You understand this chapter 3, right? Dhamma, what's in Dhamma object? Mind, Vedasika, Samrupa, Nibbana, Panyati, Dhamma object, this is my object, right? Dhamma object, my object. So, here we get the study about this, you will not understand their nature, the meaning. So I would like all of you to know it's Tidi Dhamma, Tisang Dhammana. This means wholesome consciousness can force wholesome consciousness to arise, and unwholesome consciousness and functional consciousness to arise. So it's a very important one. We classify all the Chitta, Tirasika, Rupa, Nibbana, Panyati as a Kusala, Akusala, Abhyagata. Ku is means Kusala, wholesome consciousness. Right? Wholesome consciousness can force Kusala, wholesome consciousness to arise by object condition. And Kusala, wholesome consciousness can force Akusala, unwholesome consciousness to arise. Yes, because of its wholesome consciousness. Because you're wholesome, right? I explain you one by one. But suppose the Akusala, unwholesome consciousness to arise. Because of this Kusala, wholesome consciousness, suppose the Abhyagata, functional consciousness to arise. Yes, 9 here, right? Kusala to Kusala, Kusala to Akusala, Kusala to Abhyagata. Right? The second one is unwholesome consciousness to unwholesome unwholesome consciousness to wholesome consciousness, unwholesome to functional consciousness. Briefly, right? Abhyagata, from Abhyagata to Abhyagata. Right? From Abhyagata to Kusala, from Abhyagata to Akusala. We say in Pali very short, So, and also I would like all of you to know the term of Pali, like Kusala is wholesome, Akusala, unwholesome, Abhyagata is functional. So, let's start the first one. Kusala, wholesome consciousness, are related to wholesome consciousness by way of object, by object condition. Is that right? Wholesome, wholesome consciousness is related to wholesome consciousness by object condition. Formerly, you used to make relation to someone. What consciousness? Wholesome consciousness. You used to observe your precepts, or 5 precepts, 8 precepts, especially with wholesome consciousness. You used to pray, used to practice meditation before. Wholesome and unwholesome. Wholesome. It's wholesome consciousness as so. Now you think about it. So last year, I moved to meditation. I go and observe my precepts as temple, and I practice meditation, my retreat, or 1 week or 1 month, I think about it. What consciousness strikes in your mind? Wholesome consciousness. Depend on wholesome consciousness. Now, wholesome consciousness arise. This means this wholesome consciousness for the wholesome consciousness arise. It's the by object condition because you're thinking about. What's your object we're thinking about? Your object is your dana, like your charity, your sila, your morality. It's the bhavana, your meditation. It's your object, right? Who taking this object? Either here. Where's the Ãrammana, the subject here? Among 89 have consciousness. What wholesome consciousness? Great wholesome consciousness. 8. Remember that, right? So, depend on your dana, sila, bhavana, what you have done previously, you're thinking about it. That wholesome consciousness. This means kusala to kusala. This wholesome consciousness related to wholesome consciousness by object condition. Understand it, right? It's one thing. In Pali, because kusala dhammo, kusala dhamma. Don't need to reply about that. That's right. And second one, from kusala to akusala. From wholesome consciousness is related to unwholesome consciousness. See? By object condition. Previously, you do the good, right? You do the contribution, you observe your precept, and you practice your meditation. Now you think about when I went to church or somewhere, when I do my donation, thinking about the place, thinking about the person you don't like, and then you get angry. inquire about that, what consciousness strikes your mind? Unwholesome consciousness, anger, dosa, right? Dosa. This dosa arises because of what? Because of previously what we have done by wholesome consciousness. Right? And also the thing that, I couldn't make donation. No one can make donation like me. Just I alone, I can do that. Be proud of yourself. Mana, pride. Pride is the wholesome, unwholesome. Unwholesome. See? Anything, oh, I'm sorry. I don't make a lot of donations. And then you attach to your contribution, right? Your money, something like that. If you can, you want to get back some, something like that. Attachment. What is that? Loba, see? Loba. Regarding about previous donation, now, Loba, right? Dosa, anger, right? Mana, concept, pride. Right. Unwholesome, right? Because of what? Because of wholesome. This means wholesome consciousness are related to unwholesome consciousness by object consciousness. This is the thing about object, right? Talking about that for the dhyana. For the sila, for the bhavana, same. When you go somewhere, come to observe your sila precept, like meditation with one of your friends. Do not get along with her because she disturbed me. Then anyway, I cannot observe my precept rightly. I cannot practice meditation. Think about your friend. So, and then you get angry with her. Your retreat, think about the food, think about your teacher, think about your friend, and then you get angry. This unwholesome consciousness we call kusala, akusala in Pali. Wholesome consciousness that produce unwholesome consciousness to arise. Right? And how about the third one? Kusala to abhyagata. Kusala is wholesome. Abhyagata is a functional consciousness. For Arahant, who already gave fourth state of enlightenment, become Arahant, they think about previously, before they become Arahant, they do many donations, and they observe their precepts, they practice meditation, and they, what are they? Wholesome consciousness, right? Now this Arahant, think about it. When this Arahant think about it, what kind of consciousness? Functional consciousness. No wholesome, no other. Functional consciousness. Kiriya Chitta. Right? Great wholesome consciousness. Right. This means this wholesome consciousness related to functional consciousness. The mind of Arahant. Oh yes, they become Arahant. The great wholesome consciousness is that the mind of Arahant, that Arahant consciousness, is beyond wholesome and unwholesome. Because their function is just doing. For except Arahant, if they have wholesome and unwholesome, we have to get stuff in the future life. The wholesome as the cause is the stuff, right? But for Arahant, the function is just doing, no result. That's why when Arahant is thinking about, consider about what they are doing in previously, this means the wholesome consciousness and related to this functional consciousness. When we understand these 3 points, For Akusala also, we understand about that. Akusala. Here, Akusala to Akusala, right? This means unwholesome consciousness related to unwholesome consciousness by object condition. When you kill someone, when you steal someone's property, what kind of consciousness? Unwholesome consciousness. Now you think about it. One time I killed this animal, I steal someone's property. Just thinking about what you're doing in previous. Now, sorry about it. Be sorry about it. When it's sorry, what is sorry? Yeah. Unhappy. Unhappy is anger. Dosa. Right, dosa. Maybe say, oh, because I killed this person. Now I get a lot of money from him. Because I steal someone's property. Now I have a lot of money. I can buy a good house. I can buy a good car. What's the law about it? Right? You stay happy about what you are doing previously. This unwholesome consciousness related to unwholesome consciousness. This means unwholesome consciousness to use unwholesome consciousness to price gain. Very detailed, right? Unwholesome consciousness related to unwholesome consciousness. And second one, akusala to kusala. Unwholesome consciousness related to wholesome consciousness. Yeah. Unwholesome consciousness is the cause. Right? Wholesome consciousness is the sum. What do you think about that? Yeah. When you do the bad thing before, it's an unwholesome consciousness. Oh, I'm sorry about that. I will not do it anymore. So I try to reduce this bad karma. What I have to do, I will do contribution as much as I can. I try to observe my ilak, my precept purely. I try to pray and practice meditation every day. Cure this unwholesome, right? The bad, this karma. Now you do the good thing. There's a lot of people in our world. Some, they do everything. The evil thing. They kill the people, they steal someone's property, they lie to people, they use drugs, something like that. Later on, they quit, give up everything, and go to practice meditation and gain enlightenment. Yeah, right? This means unwholesome consciousness as the cause, wholesome consciousness as the result. Yeah, right? Can happen like that. So when you regret about what you are doing, now you just do the good thing. She takes the previous action as the example, as lesson, right? Try to be a good person. This means unwholesome consciousness are related to wholesome consciousness by way of object condition, right? Object condition. Or one more. Because of unwholesome consciousness, the wholesome consciousness can arise, right? Thinking about what we're doing, the evil thing previously, now you get regret, and you will do good thing. Try to be a good person. And for the trainer, for the Sodapanna, stream enterer, right? Stream enterer, or the one returner or non-returner. They think about. Now we become a holy person. Just became elected, right? For the Sodapanna, stream enterer, what he eradicated? Doubt and wrong view. Doubt and wrong view is the unwholesome, right? Unwholesome. unwholesome consciousness. And then he think about the whole. What he think about? Think about the doubt and wrong you. Doubt and wrong you is the object. You see the object here, Ãrammana here. See, Citta is the figure. Doubt and wrong you, including this, the mind and mental state, right? As object. Who takes this object? Which Dhamma takes the object? Wholesome consciousness. Right? See that Ãrammana, Vajjayupana, mind and mental. It's great wholesome consciousness. Now, I already eradicate this wrong you and doubt. This wrong and doubt is unwholesome consciousness. When this Sotapanna, same and thinking about, constantly about this doubt and wrong you, this wholesome consciousness arise. Right? This also we can call this unwholesome consciousness is produced wholesome consciousness to us. The third one, unwholesome consciousness is produced abhyagata, functional consciousness to arise. This is for Arahant. For Arahant, he's thinking about all the mental defilement, all 10, right? Or widely 1,500 mental defilement. No more. I already eradicated. Think about it. The thing he thinks the object was object. Kilesa, mental defilement, unwholesome consciousness. When he thinking about that, concentrating about that, the term he thinking about it, what kind of consciousness? Kiriya, functional consciousness. That's why akusala to abhyagata, unwholesome consciousness as object. Right? The abhyagata, great wholesome, great functional consciousness is subject. Right? Object, subject, cause and effect. For abhyagata here, abhyagata to abhyagata. Abhyagata to abhyagata. Abhyagata here, what's the abhyagata? Neither wholesome nor unwholesome. This means when certain consciousness, functional consciousness, 28 matter, right? And Nibbana, abhyagata. Right? Nibbana, Panyati is abhyagata. So abhyagata, look at here. Rupayarana Chakku Vinyana Dhatiya Sang Samyudakanancha Dhammana Ãrammana Pajjina Pajjino. The visible object is related to eye consciousness. Visible object is Rupa. Among 28 matter, right? Rupa. Rupa is object. Chakku Vinyana Dhatiya, eye consciousness. Eye consciousness, what type of consciousness? Is certain consciousness. See that, right? Is certain consciousness, right? I consciousness is certain consciousness. This certain consciousness is abhyagata. See that, right? This visible object is abhyagata. This abhyagata related to abhyagata. See that, right? Visible object is rupa, right? Rupa is abhyagata. We're gonna this visible object, this color, this form, this picture. We're gonna call it wholesome, unwholesome, abhyagata. And your eye consciousness, see that. You're gonna say wholesome, unwholesome. This is certain consciousness. It's abhyagata. See, right? Abhyagata to abhyagata. Very clear, right? Abhyagata to abhyagata. Because abhyagata as object, the abhyagata is the subject. The cause is cause. That's abhyagata, rupa, matter. Where's the effect? Just abhyagata. But the mentality, right? Mentality. This rupa is the materiality. Matter. So abhyagata to abhyagata. And second one, abhyagata to kusala. Because of this abhyagata. This abhyagata related to wholesome consciousness. Wholesome consciousness. Now, as someone think about your eye sensitivity or visible object as impermanent. So this eye consciousness or this color, this picture, this form, this visible object just arise and disappear as impermanent because they are oppressing by arising and disappearing is suffering, dukkha. Right? This eye sensitivity or this visible object and so on, this rupa, it's not person. Right? It's the nature of mind, the nature of matter. It's anatta. Right? No person, no individual, it's uncontrollable, the anatta. If you think about it or contemplate on this eye sensitivity as impermanent, as suffering, as non-self, uncontrollability. It's what's meant here at a time. What kind of consciousness arises? Wholesome consciousness. Depend on what? Depend on rupa. Rupa is an abhyagata. This abhyagata related to wholesome consciousness. This abhyagata, eye sensitivity is called wholesome consciousness as dissolved. See that, right? This abhyagata is produced wholesome consciousness to arise. You can see that too. Yeah. It is called kriya. Kriya is just a functional consciousness. It is called kriya. This kriya is one of among abhyagata too. Right? They are all vipaka citta. Right? Vipaka is certain consciousness. 36 is abhyagata. 20 kriya citta. Also abhyagata. So please just remember abhyagata and kriya are different, are different. Kriya is just only consciousness. If abhyagata is not only consciousness, right? Even the rupa and nibbana. And the last one, abhyagata to abhyagata to agusala. Right? Abhyagata to agusala. This means because of this abhyagata, like for example, you look at the mirror, see your face, you feel your eyes sensitivity. Oh, my eyes very beautiful. Think that. And you attach to your eye. I'm very pretty, something like that, Your body, what's the name? Abhyagata. Rupa, right? Matter. Rupa. My hair is very, very nice. My nose is very beautiful, something like that. Think about it. At that moment, what kind of consciousness arises? Unwholesome consciousness, lobha. Right? Maybe you're happy about it, but happy, lobha, somanasa thaka. With happy, pleasurable feeling. We already studied at chapter 1, right? Lobha, consciousness, right? So, this means abhyagata. This rupa produced unwholesome consciousness to arise by object condition. Just think about yourself. Oh, this is my head, my ear, my eye, my nose, my lips, very wonderful, beautiful, something like that. Oh, my dress, my body, like so. you feel that, if you feel that, oh, I'm ugly, it means you feel unhappy about it. This dosa. See, dosa. You know, when you, someone, you know, sometimes you put up your teeth, your tooth, you know, and just look at the mirror. It's very sorry. You cannot smile in front of people. See, unhappy. It's unhappy. What unhappy? Dosa. Dosa, unwholesome consciousness. So, if you don't know or don't understand yourself, right? What consciousness? Moha. Moha, unwholesome consciousness. You see? Because of abhyagata, produce unwholesome consciousness to arise. Just the Buddha, you know, just briefly explain here, just the former Dhamma is related to the later Dhamma by object condition. Just say it briefly. If we study about that in detail, you know, so many things to take example, talking about for Ãrammana. Now, I have all of you when we do chanting, right? Ruparanang jaku vinyana daduya tang samayudakanang ja dhammanang Ãrammana vajena vajyo, and so on. And you know the meaning briefly, right? Oh, because of the visible object related to is eye consciousness and is concomitant by object condition, just a cause and effect, cause and effect. No person is, all the reality. It's not finished yet about Ãrammana. It's the object condition at the time out. I would like to take special simile next week about the person, about the sixth sense object, you know, about eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind, what we look like regarding about our daily life. For this case, I will continue next week. Just thank you for everything. Yeah, what do you think about class? You're a new student, you know. You just pick up the chapter 8, so you didn't have the background about Abhidhamma. I know it's very difficult for you, but even you cannot catch it all, maybe some, right? I try the best I can, you know, as I explain you. If you just read and may translate